Esther Rolle, the unforgettable force behind Florida Evans in Good Times, was known for her fierce integrity, unshakable principles, and deep love for Black representation in media. But just before her passing in 1998, she left behind a brutally honest revelation: the names of 3 actors she deeply resented. This wasn't gossip or bitterness. These names came from a lifetime of battles behind the scenes, where disrespect, ego, and betrayal had left lasting scars. In her final interviews and private letters, Esther, known for her silence, finally spoke. And when she did, the industry could never look at these actors the same again. Esther Rolle was born on November 8, 1920, in Pompano Beach, Florida. The 10th of 18 children in a Bahamian immigrant family, raised in a deeply spiritual household, Esther grew up valuing discipline, education, and pride in heritage. Despite the racial challenges of the Jim Crow South, her determination shined early. She attended Spelman College, then transferred to Hunter College in New York City, where she began embracing both academics and the arts. It wasn't until her 30s that acting truly took hold. Esther began performing with the Negro Ensemble Company and the Asadata de Fora dance troupe, where her commanding voice and grounded presence turned heads. But it was her breakout role as Florida Evans in the 1970s sitcom Good Times that cemented her place in American television history. While many praised the show's humor and family values, Esther fought behind the scenes for authentic Black storytelling, often clashing with producers over how her character and Black culture were portrayed. She stood firmly against stereotypes and rejected fame that compromised dignity. That's why her eventual departure from Good Times in 1977 shocked audiences. It wasn't about money, it was about principle. Her strength and grace inspired generations, but behind the curtain, she experienced betrayal, disrespect, and conflict with individuals she once trusted. And toward the end of her life, she finally opened up about those painful experiences. Number 1. Jimmy Walker, who played the wildly popular and loudmouthed J.J. Evans on Good Times, was a major source of both laughter and frustration, especially for Esther Rolle. While the world shouted "D Monomit" with glee, Esther seethed quietly behind the scenes. Her issue wasn't with Jimmy's talent. She acknowledged he was funny, but she believed his character turned into a damaging caricature of young Black men. Originally, Good Times was intended to be a grounded family sitcom, focused on the strength of a Black mother and father raising children with dignity and moral strength in a housing project. But as Jimmy's catchphrase and slapstick persona gained traction with audiences, the show's writers shifted the tone. The Evans family dynamic began to revolve around JJ's antics, often sidelining serious storylines about education, racial struggle, and working-class values. Esther fought against this shift, insisting that it perpetuated negative stereotypes. In her words, "He's 18 and he doesn't work. He can't read or write. He doesn't think." The show didn't start out to be that. Off-screen, Esther and Jimmy rarely spoke. Their relationship was strained, with tension brewing during table reads and cast meetings. Esther believed Jimmy didn't understand, or worse, didn't care about the cultural responsibility the show carried. She saw his comedic rise as part of the show's decline in moral purpose. Decades later, Jimmy downplayed the feud in interviews, insisting it was never personal. But for Esther, it was always about legacy, dignity, and the image being projected to millions of homes. In her final reflections, she didn't mince words. Jimmy Walker symbolized the betrayal of what Good Times was meant to be, and she never forgave that shift in UMBA to John Amos at first glance. It may seem surprising that Esther Rolle harbored resentment toward John Amos. After all, the two portrayed one of television's most beloved couples, Florida and James Evans. Their on-screen chemistry was electric, built on mutual respect and intensity. But behind the scenes, their relationship was far more complex. In the early seasons of Good Times, Esther and John were united in their fight for authentic black representation. They both challenged the producers, pushed back against scripts, and demanded substance over sitcom cliches, but cracks began to form as tensions with the show's creators escalated. John Amos was notoriously outspoken and, at times, confrontational with the writers and executives, while Esther believed in challenging injustice. She felt John's combative approach often escalated conflicts unnecessarily, putting the entire show and cast under fire. By season 3, John was written off the show entirely, with his character killed off in a controversial move that deeply affected Esther. Privately, she felt abandoned. She believed that John's departure, while partly justified, left her to bear the burden of maintaining the show's integrity alone. She later confided to friends that he had jumped ship when things got hard, leaving her to fight battles on set without the support of her strongest ally. Even when John returned for special appearances later in his career, the warmth they once shared had cooled. Though she respected his talent, she grew disillusioned with what she perceived as ego and inflexibility. Esther valued community over ego, quiet resolve over loud rebellion. And to her, John had crossed that line. In her later years, Esther reportedly referred to John, not with hatred, but with heavy disappointment. A man who once stood with her, then stood apart when it mattered most. Number 3. Ted Kane. Not directly associated with Good Times, Ted Knight crossed professional paths with Esther Rolle in the broader television circuit of the 1970s. Best known for his pompous and hilarious portrayal of Ted Baxter on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Knight was a household name, especially among white audiences. But behind the curtain of sitcom laughter, Esther Rolle reportedly had tense experiences with Knight that shaped her deep mistrust towards certain Hollywood personalities. In several interviews and private conversations, Esther spoke about the condescension she often experienced from industry peers who underestimated her intellect and cultural insight. Ted Knight, she claimed, embodied that dismissive attitude. During a 1974 joint guest appearance on a network panel promoting diversity in TV, Knight allegedly interrupted and talked over Esther repeatedly, minimizing her points about black representation and dignity on television. She was deeply offended, not just by the rudeness, but by the air of superiority he carried, as though his mainstream success validated his views more than hers. Esther saw Ted Knight as a symbol of the systemic disrespect that black performers, especially black women, faced in the industry. He wasn't overtly racist, but his patronizing tone and casual dismissal of social issues grated on her. She once remarked to a close friend, "He smiled through your silence, as long as you stayed in your place." Though they never worked closely again, the experience lingered with Esther. She believed actors like Ted Knight benefited from an industry built on double standards, where white mediocrity thrived while black excellence had to constantly justify its presence. To Esther Rolle, Ted Knight wasn't just another actor. He was a reminder of the uphill battle she fought every day to be seen, heard, and respected in an industry stacked against her.